Hello all, and welcome to yet another IDA year 2021. IDA Malabar branch 2021 is happy to associate with all of you once again. Last year we had an eminent team led by Dr. Shaju Mandoli and Dr. Navjeet. This year also Dr. Shaju Mandoli is heading us along with Dr. Tom, and as a part of CDE programs, WDC is happy to inaugurate the session with a CDE program along with Dr. Unnikrishnan and the whole team of IDA Malabar branch. Over to Dr. Shaju Mandoli for addressing the gathering.
Hello, good evening to all. Oral surgeons day ആണ്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ തുടക്കം തൊട്ട് പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു നമ്മുടെ സ്പെഷ്യാലിറ്റിയിലുള്ള ഇവന്റ് ഒക്കെ ആ ഡേകൾ നമ്മുടെ തന്നെ ഫാക്കൽറ്റി ആരെങ്കിലും വെച്ചിട്ട് നമുക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു പ്രോഗ്രാം നടത്തുന്ന പ്ലാൻ സമീറ സജസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതിന് പ്രകാരമാണ് നമ്മൾ തുടങ്ങിയത്. തുടക്കം തന്നെ നടത്തിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അശ്വതി കഴിഞ്ഞ കൊല്ലം നല്ല ഗംഭീരമായിട്ടൊരു പ്രോഗ്രാം. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ ആദ്യം തന്നെ ചൂസ് ചെയ്തത്. സമയം വൈകി നമുക്ക് ഭംഗിയായിട്ട് തുടങ്ങാം. ഇക്കൊല്ലം കഴിഞ്ഞ കൊല്ലത്തെ ടീം ഇക്കൊല്ലം മാറേണ്ടതായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷേ നമ്മുടെ ഹെഡ് ഓഫീസിൽ തീരുമാനപ്രകാരം കോവിഡ് പ്രശ്നം കാരണം നമുക്ക് പുതിയ ഒരു ജനറൽ ബോർഡിൽ വിളിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന സാഹചര്യത്തില് നമ്മൾ പഴയ ടീം തന്നെ തുടരുകയാണ്. നമ്മുടെ സെക്രട്ടറി മാത്രം ടൈം ബീങ് ലീവില് മാറി നിൽക്കുന്നു. അതിന് ആക്ടിംഗ് സെക്രട്ടറി ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ടോം ഉണ്ട്. ഇക്കൊല്ലം ഞങ്ങളുടെ സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ് കിട്ടിയിരിക്കുന്നത് ഇതുവരെ കുറച്ച് ദിവസമായിട്ട് നമുക്കൊരു എന്താ പറയുക നല്ലൊരു സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ് ട്രബിൾ നിൽക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. WDC ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു പ്രോഗ്രാമായിട്ട് മുന്നോട്ട് വന്നതിൽ WDCക്ക് എല്ലാവിധ അഭിനന്ദനങ്ങളും അർപ്പിച്ചുകൊള്ളുന്നു. നമുക്ക് ഇനിയും രസകരമായ വെബിനാറുകൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ബോറടിക്കണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ഫിസിക്കൽ CDയിലേക്ക് മാറും. വൺസ് നമ്മുടെ കോവിഡിന്റെ പ്രശ്നം കഴിഞ്ഞ് നമ്മൾ ഉടനെ അതിനാലും സ്വിച്ച് ഓവർ ചെയ്യും. അതുകൊണ്ട് അതുവരെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ സഹകരിച്ച് ഈ രീതിയിൽ നമുക്കൊരു പ്രോഗ്രാം നിങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. ഓവർ ടു അശ്വതി, പ്ലീസ്.
Yes, sir. A brief introduction of our faculty. Dr. Ashwati Vinod. Dr. Ashwati Vinod completed her BDS and MDS from KMCT Dental College. She completed her MDS in maxillofacial surgery under the able guidance of Dr. Manoj Kumar KP, and currently she is associated with KMCT, and she is in the Department of Maxillofacial Surgery as assistant professor. Today she'll be enlightening us about biopsies, the do's and don'ts, and how to well refer a patient with CA to a specialist. Over to Dr. Ashwati for her words of enlightenment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, audible ആണോ ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, you are audible. No problem.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to the topic. I'll be dealing with how to take a biopsy, what are the things to be kept in mind while we go for a biopsy, and how to refer a patient with CA, particularly a CA patient, how to write a reference letter, and how clear your reference letter should be, and what are the things you should include when you send a biopsy. If you're taking biopsy from your clinic, how you should take a biopsy, how should you transport the biopsy material, and how you should write a reference letter for the biopsy, as well as if you're clinically seeing a patient, how to deal or refer a patient with CA. As we all know, early detection saves lives in case of cancer. So it is very important how you detect a CA patient. We as oral surgeons, we come across, as we deal with oral cavity, we come across several patients who are at the initial stage of CA. That is because mostly the patient delays his treatment. That is because of the wrong diagnosis or misinterpretation what we give the patient. We are not examining the patient thoroughly. We don't examine the subsides of the oral cavity. We just examine the complaint and we send the patient back. Maybe that patient will be in the initial stage of CA. We don't detect that. So always we should give a prime importance to the early detection to save lives in case of CA. I hope all of us are very familiar with this picture. 6 blind people watching an elephant. It's like examining 6 blind people examining an elephant. Just have a look at the figure. The first person touching the trunk of the elephant diagnoses that as a stick. or a that is harmless, or a snake. He feels it looks like a snake. He's not seeing that. He diagnoses that, he feels it, and he diagnoses that snake, which is harmful for us. Okay. Same thing, the patient is the surgeon or the clinician examine the tail of this elephant, and they come to a diagnosis that it may be a rope or a harmless structure. That is their diagnosis. The other person examines the body of this animal, and they come to a conclusion that that may be a wall. Okay. The next person evaluates the leg of the elephant, and he concludes that that looks like a wooden bark or a trunk, wooden bark. Okay. Another person, the next person is not shown in the figure. He examines the ear of the elephant and comes to a conclusion that it looks like a fan. Okay. These are the different conclusions different clinicians formulate according to how they see the specimen. They are not examining the elephant as a whole. They are examining different parts of this elephant. Similarly, we as clinicians, when we see the patient, we take biopsy from some site. Say we are taking from the lateral border of the tongue. We just take a specimen, we take a biopsy, and we send it in the formalin bottle to the lab. The pathologist there is not aware about the site, size, shape, what is the clinical condition, whether some investigation was done. Nothing is written. The pathologist cannot come to a diagnosis with inadequate data that the clinician writes. So always keep this in picture in mind when you refer a patient or when you take a biopsy, or let it be a normal tooth. Let it be a normal tooth examination for a decay or a pulpitis. When you are examining, always keep in mind this picture. Don't come to a diagnosis just by feeling that part. Deeply examine not only that part, also the associated structures to come to a proper diagnosis. So this is what was the conclusion of 6 blind people examining the elephant. Okay. First, one blind person felt the body of an elephant as a brick. The other person, tail as a rope. Then a fan-shaped ear. Some poisonous snake, that was the diagnosis of a trunk of the elephant, and some sharp instrument that was for the horn of the elephant. Okay. And the legs, they came to a different conclusion. 6 different conclusions were derived from the clinically examining this elephant. None of them examined the elephant completely. This is how most of us take a biopsy, or when we refer a patient, this is how we come to a conclusion. This is wrong. Always keep in mind, examine the patient completely as a whole. Whether investigations were previously done, please note it down in your clinical history. So how do you formulate a diagnosis in case of CA? When you examine a patient comes to you with some ulcer. Since it is associated with CA, I'm telling you with an example of an ulcer. If a patient comes to you with an ulcer in the lateral border of the tongue, immediately we don't, at the first site itself, we don't take a biopsy for that patient. We wait and watch that patient for at least 2 weeks, and we check whether what is the medical condition of the patient. Is there any reason for this non-healing ulcer? We evaluate the patient. Next, we examine whether what is the reason for trauma. Is it due to trauma? What is the reason around that particular area? Next, we check the adjacent areas, that is subsites in the oral cavity, whether there is any hard swelling or whether there is any lymph node involvement associated with that particular lesion, which we have seen. Then we send the patient back. We formulate a diagnosis. Say we formulate a simple diagnosis like traumatic ulcer. Let it be a traumatic ulcer. We keep our differential diagnosis aside. We start treatment for a traumatic ulcer. You grind the edges of the tooth. Then what do? You advise antibiotic if it is severely infected or something like that. You give like that. Painkillers will be advised, and then you watch the patient. Still, if this is remain as a non-healing ulcer for more than 2 weeks, then we need to interfere with further treatments. For that, you need to evaluate the subsides of the oral cavity. Clinically, you need to evaluate. Still, if it remains as a non-healing ulcer, then you will have to go for biopsy. Further imaging and staging of the condition should be done. This is how we clinically formulate a diagnosis in case of CA. Anatomical subsites in the oral cavity. You can see this picture. There are different anatomical subsites which we observe. That is lip. You have to examine the lip, upper and lower, anterior two-third of the tongue, floor of the mouth, gingiva, buccal mucosa, retromolar trigon, and the hard palate. These are the, we always miss this retromolar trigon. It's an important area which we should consider while examining a patient. These are the anatomical subsites that are seen in the oral cavity. These are the subsite distribution of oral cancers. Majority of the cancers affect the tongue. 43% there is involvement in the tongue region. Then comes the 14% is for the floor of the mouth. Okay. Buccal mucosa. These are the percentage of distribution of oral cancer in the oral cavity. Now, sorry. This is how a cancerous cell progresses. You have different genetically altered cells in our body. So what happens is when you come across any genetic mutation, these cells are prompt to proliferate and they genetically alter. Okay, instead of resting after the normal cycle, what happens is genetical mutation causes them to proliferate. And what happens then? It goes to the next stage of dysplasia. That is, additional mutations lead to excessive cell proliferation with abnormal cellular features and behavior. So that particular cell undergoing dysplasia behaves abnormally, unlike the normal cell. Then next stage is carcinoma in situ. Accumulating cell mutations cause further abnormal growth and appearance restricted to the epithelium. The lesion may remain unchanged indefinitely, or additional mutation may lead to the next stage, a true case of neoplasm. Okay. Next stage, again, this stage we are keeping it undiagnosed. What happened? It progresses to the next stage, that is invasive cancer. Further genetic changes allows the malignant cells to invade the underlying tissue and possibly enter the bloodstream or lymphatic system, resulting in metastasis. There, now you have a host response. Now, maybe in the later stage, in some cases, we diagnose CA only in the end stage or the later stages. That is because the changes or the host response starts in some CA cases. The host response starts only in the end stage of CA, which makes treatment more difficult. Clinical evaluation. When we consider our oral cavity, it is important to evaluate the neck also along with oral cavity if you suspect CA. That is because you need to evaluate the neck nodes. What are the importance of neck node involvement in case of CA? If it is involving the floor of the mouth, you should always evaluate. You see an ulcer in the floor of the oral cavity. You have to always examine the associated lymph nodes. If the lymph node is inflamed, or if you find any abnormal lymph node, if it is alteration in the size, shape, or consistency of the lymph node, then you need to further refer the patient to a oncosurgeon or for further examination. That is, you have to evaluate the patient properly. If you are not able to evaluate this patient, or you don't know what to do, if you examine a patient, you don't know, you feel something hard is there and you don't know how to examine, at least properly refer this case. Don't further do anything. If you don't know, don't proceed, but write a proper reference letter and refer this patient to a expert, that is an oncosurgeon. So you should know how to write a diagnosis. What were your findings? What are the things you found out in that patient? What are the things you should include in your reference letter? Those things should be clear. And you should include all that in your reference letter. You clinically evaluate 8-step examination of the mouth. Involve all these sites, examine all these sites and the adjacent sites. Gingiva, mucosa, we always, if the patient is complaining of pain in relation to 1-1, it is important to examine not only 1-1, but associated structures around 1-1. Gingiva, usually we miss that. If unless and until patient has periodontitis, we usually miss that diagnosis. Lip of the patient, buccal mucosa, always feel buccal mucosa. In these smokers, etc., you can see the alteration in the tissue on the buccal mucosa. Always evaluate that. Vestibule, anterior gingival region, hard palate, tonsillar area, ventral surface of the tongue, floor of the mouth, and the lateral border of the tongue. All these sides, these 8-step examination, all these sides should be examined thoroughly before you send the patient. What are the warning signs, or what are the signs that you should know that this indicate, or there are indications, these show some pre-malignant lesions, or these are few indications of CA, or there can be transformation of this tissue to a cancerous tissue? What are the warning signs you get? A white or red or a mixed red and white discoloration, any ulcer which is persisting for more than 2 weeks, any firm hard mass anywhere in the oral cavity, unexplained loose tooth, gum bleeding which is not associated with periodontitis, deformities of the jawbones. These things should be kept in mind. If you find an abnormal ulcer, I told you already, initially if you find an ulcer, there is no need to right away take a biopsy. You treat that patient as you treat a traumatic ulcer. You observe that case, inform the patient, and still if it is non-healing, then you have to evaluate that patient further. If there is any hard abnormal mass, when you are palpating the buccal mucosa, you feel some hard mass around there, you don't know what to do. So you refer this patient to someone who knows how to treat that. If you treat without knowing what to do, if you keep treating the patient, what happens? The stage of the CA progresses, and finally that causes more difficulty and more damage to that particular patient. So please, if you don't know what to do, kindly refer the patient to an onco-surgeon. Unexplained loose tooth, maybe that is a healthy patient. Suddenly patient comes to you with chronic periodontitis. That will be your, when we see the patient, we say, okay, mobile tooth periodontitis, we'll do a flap surgery. It is not like that. If you find something abnormal, that is unexplained loose tooth, suddenly patient tooth is becoming loose, gum is bleeding, which is not associated with periodontitis, so you should be able to make out what type of patient you are examining, how a normal periodontitis looks, and you have to further investigate the patient. If you don't know at any point of time, if you find difficulty or if you don't know what to do next, kindly refer this patient. Examination of the neck. We ask the patient to turn to the opposite side. You examine the nodes on either side of your sternocleidomastoid. You position the patient, and then there are certain positions to maintain for examination of the patient. Maintain the position and then examine each and every level of the nodes. And you come to a conclusion, or if you are doubting whether it is 1 or 2, if you find it is whether it is first level or second level, you don't know which level it is, then just write 1 and add a question mark to it. You are not sure about which node it is. So all this, if you find there is a node, that should be included in your referral letter. So these are the levels, neck nodes, and this is how you should examine each level of your neck. You have 1, 2A, you have 1 here in this region, anterior region. You have 2A and 2B here, 3, 4, 5A, 5B, and 6. Different anatomical locations differentiate this into these nodal levels, and each node should be assessed. That is, there is a probability chance. If it is floor of the mouth, then node 1 level will be involved. There are certain probabilities which we say. So this examination of the neck node is very important. According to the involvement of your neck node, your stage of your cancer, staging of that cancer changes. Same, if the staging changes, treatment protocols also differ. Tissue diagnosis. Tissue diagnosis is mandatory before treatment for any malignant tumor. Biopsy for a primary tumor, FNAC, fine needle aspiration cytology for a cervical node, core needle or true cut biopsy for deeper tumors. You stain that, there are different types of biopsies depending upon the site, size, shape of the tumor. There are different types of wide varieties of biopsies. That is, these biopsies change, the name changes based on the instrument used or the site. I'll come to that. There are different types of biopsy. Only on the method, there is brush biopsy. You use a brush to scrape the site. Okay, that is called as brush biopsy. Then you have FNAC. If it is a deeper cervical node, you position the node and you insert this needle. You insert your fine needle and you aspirate it and send it for histopathological examination, and then you come to a conclusion what kind of a tumor it is. Biopsy. Here in this picture, in this first picture, you can see the lateral aspect of the tongue, and there is a small swelling on the lateral aspect of the tongue. Here you can see a biopsy bottle also. Here, this tip is held by a tissue forceps here, and this is a scalpel. This tissue forceps, if you are trying to take this portion, this tiny tip out, and if you're crushing it with the toothed forceps, the diagnosis may go wrong. You are injuring that, you are already getting a very small bit of that particular area, and on top of that, if you are injuring that with your instrument, the pathologist cannot help it. So it is the surgeon or the clinician who is taking the biopsy should keep in mind that if you are holding the tissue, make sure that you hold with the non-toothed forceps. You are transporting your biopsy specimen in a formalin bottle. This is a box. You don't know what is inside the box. Taking a biopsy is like knowing the unknown. You don't know what is happening inside. Whether it is a CA, whether it is a traumatic ulcer, whether it is a fibroma, you don't know what it is. So the conclusion, the confirmation of your clinical diagnosis depends upon the specimen you give to the pathologist. So it is you who is seeing the case. So it should be you who is reporting a detailed case history. So the pathologist should be able to see the patient without seeing the patient. That depends on how you explain the case to the pathologist. So similarly, you see, you don't know what is inside the box. It can be chocolate, it can be a cake, it can be something else. Anything can be inside the box. Similarly, when you take a biopsy, keep this in mind. The pathologist is not aware of what you are seeing. So before taking a biopsy, always go around the tissue. See how it is, whether it is infiltrating, what are the surrounding structures you see there. Do you find any abnormalities there? That should be evaluated. You should know what is inside. Once you keep, if you take, you are the first person seeing the patient. You take a biopsy from a lateral aspect of the tongue. And what happens? The pathologist examines the specimen and he comes to the conclusion that there is insufficient material. That will be the diagnosis the pathologist gives you. Okay. So you have a second option, that is you can take the biopsy again. So you are unnecessarily harming the patient by asking him to come again for this pathology to take the biopsy. On top of that, you have already done a biopsy and there will be scar formation there that can again mislead you. That will give you a wrong diagnosis. See this, now the box is opened. What do you see in this picture? You can see a cake that is round in shape. This cake is divided into equal parts. There is equal, like you can adjacent area. You can see on the top cover, you can see some part of the cake is stuck on the opposite part. These are the conclusions I find from this cake. Okay, opened box cake. I come to a conclusion that it is so and so. Okay, the opposite sides, if you just see the lesion, you are not aware how its opposite side is. You can see there are some residues on the cover on the opposite side. That indicate you have to examine the adjacent structures, associated lymph nodes, how the adjacent area looks like, how the gingiva is, what is the status of the buccal mucosa. All that should be taken care of when you examine the patient clinically, and all these points should be noted down in your referral letter. Hope the matter is clear. What are the things to be kept in mind when you are going to take a biopsy? It should be taken at an adequate depth of 3 to 4 millimeter. That is, you should involve not only the epithelium, but also the connective tissue should be involved so that the pathologist can evaluate the connective tissue. For that, you need to take a depth of 3 to 4 millimeter. The amount of fixative you take in the bottle should be 15 to 20 times the bulk of the tissue to be fixed. It will be a small bit. So even that should be the formalin that you pour into the bottle should be 15 to 20 times the bulk of the tissue. The tissue should be completely embedded in the formalin bottle. Tissue should be kept in the fixative for 24 hours. That is for fixation of the tissues. For this 24 hours, you have 24 hours time to transfer this bottle to the lab. So the thing to be kept in mind is this 24 hours, the time when your biopsy was taken and when you dropped the specimen to the fixative should be clearly noted in your referral letter. That should be noted in the letter that you are forwarding to the lab. Then only the pathologist will understand, okay, this is fixed for 24 hours. Now I can go to the next step. So this should be kept in mind. The bottle will be having 10% formalin, that is 4% formaldehyde. Delay in fixation and inadequate fixation alters the staining quality. So keep in mind, delay in fixation and inadequate fixation alters the staining quality. Do not squeeze the tissue into the container. Always keep a wide container for placing this tissue inside. There are different types of artifacts that we come across while we take this biopsy. That is injection artifact, forceps artifact, laser artifact, suction artifact, diffusion artifact. Injection artifact is when you give LA for this patient, always keep in mind, never inject this LA directly onto the site where you are planning to take a biopsy. Always keep that in mind. Forceps artifact is when you take this, when you are holding this tissue or when you are taking a bite over this specimen, never injure or cause many striations on this tissue that will affect the overall outcome, or the pathologist will find it difficult. When there is artifact, the pathologist will find it difficult to come to a proper clinical diagnosis. Laser artifact, that happens when you use a cautery to remove, to take a biopsy. When you use a cautery, always use a scalpel to take a biopsy specimen out. Never use a laser. That can cause artifacts. Suction artifact, same way, if when you are using a suction, when you're taking a biopsy, if all the instruments are not handled properly, that can cause artifacts. Diffusion artifacts are caused when you are placing this in the formalin bottle, when the concentration is different, or when you are keeping it in the solution for a longer time, or if you delay depositing this specimen outside, if you delay depositing this in the formalin bottle, there can be diffusion artifacts. How do you take a biopsy? Please have a look at the picture. You can see that in the first picture here, undesirably it is broad and it is shallow. This is your area of interest. You need to know what the involvement of this tissue is. So when you take a specimen like this, undesirably broad and shallow, what happens is you don't know how the underlying structure. You have some amount of tissue remaining there. You don't get the normal tissue also. Only this part is involved. You don't know what is happening underneath. See this is a lesion, desirably narrow. Here you will have more bleeding also. Here if it is desirably narrow, you can get a deep incision. You can take it out properly here. The underlying connective tissue will also be involved, so that the pathologist can compare that with the normal tissue also. Here you have the abnormal tissues and here you have the normal tissues. Both abnormal and normal tissues are involved in your specimen, so that the pathologist can compare and give you a proper report. Always take biopsy from the edge of the tumor. Biopsy should be deep enough to include the connective tissue in the specimen. Specimen should be put in formalin immediately. If the biopsy is negative in a lesion that clinically shows signs of being malignant, the biopsy should be repeated. That is very, very important. If the biopsy is negative, biopsy can be negative because of many reasons, not because the patient is, the lesion is malignant, not only because the due to clinical errors, like the biopsy can be negative if the clinician is not competent enough. The person who's taking the biopsy is not aware what are the structures you should look for, or how deep you should incise. If the clinician is not aware about that, you will obviously get a negative biopsy. And if you see the patient that shows a clinically positive case, you should repeat the biopsy. If your biopsy is negative in a lesion that clinically shows signs of being malignant, the biopsy should be repeated. Always keep this in mind. You take a biopsy, you send the biopsy to the lab, the report comes, it is negative. You are informing the patient, see, it is negative. Patient goes happily. That is because you are not competent enough to evaluate the case. Keep that in mind. And if you clinically see the patient, there is bleeding on touch, underlying structures are involved, it is induration is there, then always go for a repeat biopsy. And next thing is never do an excisional biopsy. Always do an incisional biopsy, watch the case, then find what is the report, and then only go for an excision. There are different types of biopsy. You have image guided biopsy, fine needle aspiration biopsy, core needle biopsy, vacuum assisted biopsy, excisional biopsy, shave biopsy, punch biopsy, brush biopsy, and endoscopic biopsy. Depending upon what type of lesion you have and what type of biopsy you are taking, all this differs. You can guide, image guided biopsy is commonly done in patients with thyroid, etc. That is, you image guide that and you take the biopsy from that particular area. Then you have fine needle aspiration biopsy that is taken in case of lymph nodes, etc. Then you have core needle biopsy, vacuum assisted. Excisional biopsy is not done. If you are damn sure that that is not a CA case, then you can do a excisional biopsy. Shave biopsy, punch biopsy, brush biopsy, all that is depending upon the instrument used. Endoscopic biopsy, again, if it is for a deeper lesion, you need to take this biopsy by using an endoscope as a guide, then you go for endoscopic biopsy. This is image guided biopsy. You observe the image on the screen and then you pass your instrument that will be guided, and the scalpel will pass through your instrument and take this biopsy. This is called as image guided biopsy. Core needle biopsy, you are inserting this needle and then you aspirate it. This is core needle biopsy, and that aspirate will be sent for cytological examination. FNAC again, this is of thyroid. Punch biopsy, see that instrument takes the tissue as a punch, okay, and that will be sent for examination. This is brush biopsy. This is shave biopsy. You take biopsy, you clinically examine. First thing is clinically examine the patient thoroughly. You come to a diagnosis, then you come to a diagnosis that this can be, there are chances for this to transform into a CA, or there are 80% chance for this to be a CA. You advise biopsy. After your biopsy report comes, if it is positive, then you have to go for your further evaluation. At any point of time, if you are not competent enough to understand what the case is, or if you are not able to come to a diagnosis, kindly refer this patient to an oncosurgeon. What are the different types of imaging modalities you do? You take an X-ray. Why do you want to take an X-ray? In most of the cases, if you have come across any CA patient, they advise a chest X-ray. Why do they advise a chest X-ray? That is to rule out the metastasis in the chest. Okay. Then you go for most recent is PET scan. PET scan detects the hotspots in the body, and you can understand whether only that is localized in that particular area, whether it is only localized to your buccal mucosa, or is there any metastasis in some other area. Then you can go for a contrast CT. Contrast CT also you can evaluate the difference in the normal side and the other sides. Then MRI for soft tissues, USG of neck in case of thyroid, etc. These are the different types of imaging modalities you do when you come to a conclusion that it is a CA. By confirming your biopsy report, you evaluate, investigate the patient like this. Here you are imaging the patient. Anyway, we are not oncosurgeons, and we are not competent enough to operate a CA patient. Then why should we take biopsy? Why should we investigate the patient? That is a common question that comes. We are investigating if we are competent enough to take a biopsy, we can understand, okay, this case is a CA case. We are imaging so that again, when we are referring the patient, we have more data with it, and we are concluding, we are confirming our diagnosis. Yes, there is metastasis to the lungs, or there is metastasis to the liver, there is metastasis to the kidney. We are confirming our diagnosis, and we are writing all this with all the investigations and with all the clinical findings we have. We are referring this patient to a competent oncosurgeon. Staging. What are the aims of the staging? Staging is very important in case of CA. An aid to plan therapy. Depending upon the stage, which stage you are in, that decides your treatment, whether it is surgery alone is enough. Do you need radiation along with surgery? Do you need chemo, radiation? or you need a combination of surgery and chemo along with radiation. That depends upon what stage you are in, or when it is a stage 4 non-operable case, you come to a conclusion that, okay, we'll go for a palliative RT. That decision which the oncosurgeon makes depends upon which stage the patient is. In order to conclude which stage the patient is, you need to know how to examine the case and how to evaluate the neck nodes. Nodal examination is very important. That is, staging depends on the nodal involvement. Indication of prognosis. Again, if there is a big lesion with only local area, you have a big lesion, then the prognosis is better when you compare with the same type of lesion where there is nodal involvement. So this staging helps you in coming to the prognosis also. To evaluate the prognosis also, the staging is important. Comparison of results of treatment, facilitate exchange of information between the treatment centers. Suppose a patient is from Calicut, he wants to go to Trivandrum. You have to write the staging. When you refer this patient, you should write, say, T1 N0 stage patient. I am hereby referring this patient with T1 N0 M0. Kindly evaluate. So you should know the staging. That is, if this is just T1 N0, the prognosis is much better when compared with the T1 N1 case. So you should keep in mind the importance of staging. TNM staging, nomenclature in TNM staging. C TNM, that is clinical staging. P pathologic staging. R residual tumor after treatment. Y restaging after new adjuvant chemotherapy. A staging based on autopsy report. These are the different types of TNM staging we go through when we examine a CA patient. These are the nodal involvements. Here you can see N0, N1, N2A, N2B, N2C, and N3. These are the different levels, regional lymph nodes involved depending upon whether it is ipsilateral. Ipsilateral, the size of the lymph node, if it is less than 3 centimeter, then it comes under N1. If it is more than 3, between 3 and 6, again ipsilateral, it becomes under N2A. Then if it is ipsilateral multiple more than 6 centimeter, it comes under N2B. N2C, again, if it is bilateral and contralateral with more than 6 centimeter in diameter, that becomes N2C. And then N3, that is more than 6 centimeter in diameter. So diameter of the lymph node, areas involved, spread of the disease, and how the regional lymph nodes are involved